She was rejected on a Christmas blind date. Humiliated, heartbroken, left sitting alone in a crowded restaurant while families celebrated around her. She thought that was the end of her story. But then, a little girl with beautiful dark coils walked up to her table and asked a question that would change 3 lives forever. "Can we join you?" Liora Haven's hands were trembling. She sat perfectly still at table 7 in the Silver Lantern Bistro, staring at the flickering candle in front of her while the sounds of Christmas Eve celebration swirled around her. Laughter, clinking glasses, children squealing with excitement, families together. And she was alone. The chair across from her was empty. Callum Dresnor, her blind date, the man her sister Brianna had sworn was perfect for her, had walked out 15 minutes ago. Not because of an emergency, not because something came up. He'd left because he never wanted to be there in the first place. "I only came to get my mother off my back," he'd said, not even having the decency to look ashamed. His eyes had already been scanning toward the door as he spoke. "I'm kind of already seeing someone. It's complicated, but I'm not really available. Sorry you got all dressed up for nothing." Then he was gone. Just like that. Without a backward glance, Liora pressed her palms flat against the white tablecloth, willing herself not to cry. Not here. Not in front of all these people who were laughing and celebrating while her heart cracked open. She'd spent an hour on her makeup, carefully applying the burgundy lipstick that made her rich brown skin glow. She'd chosen her favorite emerald green dress, the one that hugged her curves just right. She'd worn the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her before she passed, because she'd wanted to feel connected to something meaningful tonight. She'd turned down dinner with her family because Brianna had been so insistent. This could be the one, Liora. Just give him a chance. He's handsome, he's successful, and Mom's friend says he's ready to settle down. She'd given him a chance, and he'd used her as an alibi for his mother. The humiliation was crushing. It pressed down on her chest like a physical weight, making it hard to breathe. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about every failed relationship, every man who'd looked right through her, every time she'd allowed herself to hope and been disappointed. At 31 years old, she was starting to believe something was fundamentally wrong with her, that she was the common denominator in all her romantic failures. A waiter passed by, giving her a sympathetic glance that made everything worse. He'd watched Callum leave. They all had. The couple at the next table had exchanged looks when he'd stood up and walked away, without even touching his water glass. Liora blinked rapidly, but the tears were building anyway. Hot, insistent, unstoppable. She just needed 1 minute to compose herself. Then she'd slip out quietly, drive home to her empty apartment, and spend Christmas Eve alone with a bottle of wine and the crushing realization that maybe she was meant to be by herself. But before that minute could pass, she heard a small voice. "Excuse me, are you okay?" Liora looked down, startled. Standing beside her table was a little girl, maybe 6 years old, with beautiful dark coils styled in 2 perfectly round puffs. Her bright brown eyes were full of genuine concern, and her deep brown skin glowed warmly in the restaurant's soft lighting. She wore a red velvet dress with white trim that made her look like a tiny Christmas angel, though a small bow was sliding out of her hair, suggesting she was the kind of child who couldn't stay still for long. Liora tried to compose her face, tried to force a smile that felt hollow even as she formed it. "I'm fine, sweetie. Thank you for asking." The little girl tilted her head, studying Liora with an intensity that felt almost adult in its perception. She clearly wasn't buying the lie. "But you look sad. My daddy says it's okay to be sad sometimes, but you shouldn't be sad all by yourself. That makes it worse. The simple wisdom of it cracked something open in Leora's chest. A laugh escaped, watery and broken, but genuine. That's very wise advice. My daddy is very smart, the girl said with complete confidence, as if stating an obvious fact about the universe. Then she turned and pointed across the restaurant. That's him over there. He's not very good at doing hair, but he makes really good pancakes on Saturdays, and he does funny voices when he reads stories. Liora followed the girl's gesture and saw a man frozen in his seat 3 tables away. His face was a mixture of mortification and concern as he watched his daughter approach a complete stranger. He was tall, probably mid-30s, with close-cropped hair and kind eyes that even from this distance seemed to radiate warmth. His dark skin was smooth, his jaw strong, and he wore a button-down shirt that suggested he'd also dressed up for Christmas Eve dinner. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. He stood quickly and hurried over, his long legs covering the distance in just a few strides. He reached for the little girl's hand, his expression apologetic. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice deep and genuine. She has no concept of boundaries. I told her to stay at the table, but I do too have boundaries," the little girl interrupted, her chin lifting with stubborn dignity. "I just don't like them." Despite everything, despite the humiliation still burning in her chest, despite the tears still threatening to fall, Liora laughed, really laughed. It burst out of her unexpectedly, genuine and surprised. "Please don't apologize. She's wonderful." The man's shoulders relaxed slightly, but before he could respond, the little girl turned her attention back to Liora with laser focus. "Daddy." She tugged on his sleeve, urgently. "The lady is all alone on Christmas Eve. That's really sad. Can we eat dinner with her, please? Pretty please, with sprinkles?" The man's face flushed with embarrassment. "Marlo, sweetheart, we can't just invite ourselves to a stranger's table. That's not how—" "It's okay," Liora said quickly, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "Really, you don't have to feel obligated. But she's welcome to—" But the little girl, Marlo, wasn't giving up that easily. She looked at Liora with such earnest hope that it was almost impossible to resist. "Please, I can tell you about my Christmas list. I asked for a purple bicycle and also a dog, but Daddy says maybe on the dog. Maybe means probably not, but I'm still hoping. Also, I know all the words to 3 Christmas songs, and I can sing them really good." Liora looked at the man again, and something passed between them. A recognition, perhaps. An understanding that only people who'd known real loneliness could share. His eyes weren't just kind, she realized. They were knowing. They held depths that suggested he understood exactly what it felt like to sit alone when everyone around you was celebrating. He extended his hand. "I'm Davin Ryland, and this little negotiator is Marlo. But you can call me Marley," the girl added quickly. "Everyone does except Grandma when I'm in trouble." Then she says, "Marlo Rose Ryland," in a really loud voice like this. She lowered her voice to an exaggerated, stern tone that made both adults smile. "I'm Liora," she said, shaking Davin's hand. His grip was warm and steady, and he held on just a moment longer than strictly necessary. "Liora Haven." Davin hesitated, and Liora could see him weighing the decision. He glanced at his daughter, then back at Liora, and she could practically see the internal debate playing out in his expression. Then he smiled, a genuine, kind smile that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. "Would you like some company?" "No pressure at all, but I'm told the breadsticks here are the best in the whole wide world." Liora looked at them, this earnest man with kind eyes and his irrepressible daughter in her red velvet dress, and felt something shift in her chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. "I'd like that," she said softly. "I'd like that very much." Marlo insisted on sitting between them. She climbed into the chair Callum had vacated 20 minutes ago and immediately launched into a detailed explanation of why Rapunzel was obviously the best Disney princess. She has the longest hair and also a chameleon named Pascal, who changes colors and doesn't judge people. And she hits people with a frying pan, which is really funny. And she's brave, even though she was scared. Devon caught Leora's eye across the table and mouthed, "I'm sorry," over Marlo's head. Liora shook her head, smiling genuinely for the first time that night. The truth was, Marlo's enthusiasm was exactly what she needed, a distraction from the humiliation still sitting heavy in her stomach. The waiter appeared, looking visibly relieved to see Liora was no longer alone. His earlier sympathetic glances had made her feel pathetic, but now his expression was warm. "Can I start you folks off with some drinks?" "Hot chocolate," Marlo announced authoritatively. "With extra marshmallows, please. And can you make them into a snowman shape? I saw that on a video once." "I'll see what I can do," the waiter said, grinning at her confidence. After they'd ordered breadsticks for the table as promised, along with pasta for Marlo, chicken parmesan for Devon, and lasagna for Liora, an awkward silence settled over the adults. Marlo was busy arranging the sugar packets into a tower, completely unconcerned with adult social dynamics. Devon cleared his throat. "So, I know this is probably weird, and you absolutely don't have to explain anything, but are you okay?" "That guy who left..." He trailed off, clearly not wanting to pry, but unable to help himself. "Was a blind date," Liora finished, deciding honesty was easier than pretending. "My sister set it up. She's been trying to find me someone for years." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He showed up 20 minutes late and informed me he was only here to appease his mother. Apparently he's kind of seeing someone, but came anyway, just so he could tell his mom he tried dating again." Devon's jaw tightened visibly. I don't even have words for how horrible that is." "It's Christmas Eve," Liora said. And despite her best efforts, her voice cracked slightly. "I turned down dinner with my family for this. I actually thought..." She stopped herself, shaking her head. "Sorry, you don't need to hear all this. You're trying to have a nice dinner with your daughter." "That man is a jerk face," Marlo declared suddenly, looking up from her sugar packet tower with fierce conviction. "Marlo," Devon said, trying to sound stern but failing miserably as a smile tugged at his lips. "We don't call people jerk faces." "But he is one, Daddy. He made Miss Liora sad on Christmas Eve. That's what jerk faces do. That's literally the definition." "You're not wrong, sweetheart. But we still can't say it out loud." "Can I think it really loud?" "Yes, you can think it as loud as you want." Liora wiped her eyes, surprised to find she was smiling. "Thank you, Marlo, for defending my honor. That's very chivalrous of you." Marlo reached across the table and patted Leora's hand with such solemnity it was almost comical. "You're welcome. My daddy says good people shouldn't be sad, and you seem like a really good people." The breadsticks arrived, and Marlo immediately grabbed one, declaring it the best in the whole wide world, just like I said. Between bites, she peppered Liora with questions. What's your favorite color? Green, like this dress. That's a really good color. Do you like dogs? I love dogs. I had one growing up named Biscuit. Biscuit. Marlo clapped her hands together. That's the best name. Do you think Daddy should let me get a dog? Because he says maybe, but maybe means no, and that's not fair. Devin interjected quickly. Marlo, you can't recruit strangers to your cause. She's not a stranger anymore, Daddy. She's Miss Liora. That's completely different. Liora found herself relaxing for the first time all evening. There was something genuinely disarming about Marlo's unfiltered enthusiasm. Something healing about Davin's quiet kindness. When their entrees arrived, the conversation flowed more naturally. Davin asked about her work, and Liora explained she was a kindergarten teacher at Starcrest Academy. His face lit up with genuine interest. Really? Marlo starts kindergarten in the fall. She's already practicing her letters. I can write my whole name, Marlo announced proudly. M-A-R-L-O-W-E. It's a very long name, but I'm very good at it. Want to see? She grabbed a crayon from the kids' activity pack the waiter had brought and started writing on her placemat. That's impressive, Liora said genuinely. Most kids your age are still working on their first names. Daddy says I get my smartness from my mommy, Marlo said matter-of-factly, then took another bite of pasta without looking up from her writing. Liora saw something flash across Davin's face. Pain, quickly hidden but unmistakable. She didn't press, sensing there was a story there he wasn't ready to tell. 2 hours passed, then 3. Marlo eventually started to fade. I'm not tired, she insisted, even as her eyelids drooped. I'm just resting my eyes. That's different. Davin smiled softly. I think that's our cue. We should probably get this little one home before she falls asleep in her tiramisu. Liora felt a pang of disappointment. She wasn't ready for the evening to end. Thank you for joining me, for saving my Christmas Eve. I think Marlo deserves the credit. She's the brave one in this family. They paid the bill. Davin insisted on covering everything despite Liora's protests, and made their way to the parking lot. Marlo was fully awake again now that they were outside in the cold air, running ahead to look at the Christmas lights strung along the restaurant's exterior. She's really special, Liora said quietly, watching the little girl twirl under the lights with her arms outstretched. She is, Davin agreed. There was so much love in his voice, so much pride that Liora felt her chest tighten. She saved me, honestly. After, he trailed off, then seemed to make a decision. After my wife passed away 3 years ago. Marlo was only 3. I don't know how I would have survived without her. I'm so sorry, Liora said, the pieces suddenly clicking into place. It still is hard some days, but Marlo makes it easier. He turned to look at Liora, his expression earnest in the glow of the Christmas lights. I know this is probably weird, and please don't feel obligated, but would it be too forward if I asked for your number? Not in a weird way. I'd like to see you again, if you're open to it. Liora felt something warm bloom in her chest. I'd like that too. They exchanged numbers, and Davin walked her to her car. Marlo insisted on giving Liora a hug goodbye, wrapping her small arms around Leora's waist with surprising strength. I'm really glad we found you, Marlo whispered against Leora's dress. You have a nice smile. You should smile more. Leora's eyes stung with fresh tears, but these were different, better. I'm glad you found me too, Marlo. Very glad. Davin texted her the next morning, Christmas Day. Davin. Merry Christmas, Liora. Marlo wanted me to tell you that Santa brought her the purple bicycle, but not the dog. She's accepting this with grace and dignity. She cried for 10 minutes and asked if we could return the bicycle for a puppy instead. Liora laughed out loud, startling herself. She was sitting alone in her apartment, but suddenly it didn't feel so empty. Liora, Merry Christmas to you both. Please tell Marlo I'm very sorry about the dog situation, maybe next year. Davin, you just gave her hope. You realize that, right? She's already planning next year's list. She's adding specific dog breeds now. Liora, sorry, not sorry. Davin, listen, I know it's Christmas and you're probably with family, but I was wondering, would you want to get coffee sometime this week? Just us. No 6-year-old chaperone, as much as I love her. Liora, I'd love that. They met at a small cafe near the Alderbrook River on December 27th. Davin arrived 5 minutes early, looking nervous in a way that Liora found endearing. He'd worn a navy blue sweater that brought out his warm brown eyes, and he held the door open for her with old-fashioned courtesy. They ordered coffee and found a table by the window, where weak winter sunlight filtered through the frosted glass. And then they talked. Davin told her about college, about meeting Naomi at a party junior year. He described how they'd built a life together, their dreams and plans. Then he told her about the diagnosis, the rare autoimmune condition that attacked Naomi's organs one by one, and about the 8 months of fighting that followed. She was so strong, he said, staring into his coffee. Even at the end, she was thinking about Marlo, about making sure I knew how to do her hair properly, what songs she liked before bed, how to handle the nightmares. She made me promise I'd keep living, that I wouldn't just shut down. Did you? Liora asked gently. Keep living? Davin was quiet for a long moment. Not at first. The first year was just survival, getting through each day, making sure Marlo was okay. My mom Sarah moved in, which helped. But I was so angry, Liora, at everything, at the universe, at myself for not being able to fix it. That's understandable, maybe, but it wasn't fair to Marlo. She'd lost her mother, and she needed her father, and I was just hollow. He looked up, meeting Leora's eyes. But she kept pulling me back. She'd ask me to read stories, to play tea party, to watch cartoons. And eventually, I started to feel things again. Liora reached across the table and took his hand. You're a good father, Davin. Anyone can see that. I'm trying to be. It's the most important thing I'll ever do. Then it was Leora's turn. She told him about her string of failed relationships, about the men who'd been emotionally unavailable or still hung up on exes. She told him about Callum, the humiliation of Christmas Eve. I was starting to think I was the problem, she admitted. You're not the problem, Davin said firmly. Trust me on that. They stayed for 4 hours. When they left, Davin turned to her. Can I see you again, soon? Yes, please. Their second date was dinner at a Thai restaurant Liora loved. Their third was a Saturday afternoon at the park with Marlo, who spent 2 hours on the swings and declared it the best day ever. Davin was cautious. He was protecting Marlo, making sure this was real before fully integrating Liora into their lives. She appreciated that about him. But slowly, over the months that followed, something beautiful began to build. In March, they took Marlo to the zoo. At the penguin exhibit, Marlo pressed her face against the glass. Look, they're holding flippers. Just like you and Liora hold hands. Davin glanced down, realizing they were indeed holding hands. They'd done it without thinking. Penguins mate for life, he said, then flushed. Not that I'm saying that came out wrong. Liora squeezed his hand. I like penguins. Something settled into place between them, something solid and sure. In May, Marlo had her spring recital. Liora sat next to Davin's mother, Sarah, a petite woman with silver-streaked locks and sharp eyes. My son has been through a lot, Sarah said quietly, more than anyone should bear. I know, Liora replied. You seem like a good person. Davin doesn't trust easily anymore, but he trusts you. In July, Davin suggested a family trip to Liora Coast. Family trip. The word hung in the air. Family. Sarah came too. Marlo built sandcastles. Liora helped her collect shells. And on their second evening, after Marlo fell asleep, Davin asked Liora to walk along the beach. The moon hung low over the water. They walked in comfortable silence. I need to tell you something, Davin said finally. That you were supposed to be part of our lives. He took both her hands. I'm not trying to replace Naomi. She'll always be Marlo's mother. But I think there's room for more love. For you. Tears spilled down Leora's cheeks. I want that. So much. It won't always be easy. But I love you, Liora. I love you too. Both of you. They stood wrapped in each other's arms while the waves rolled in. In August, Marlo turned 7. Her birthday party was chaotic and perfect. As the party wound down, Marlo found Liora at a picnic table. Miss Liora, can I ask you something? Are you going to come to all my birthday parties forever? Leora's heart stuttered. I'd like that very much. I want you to be my family, like how Grandma Sarah is my family. Can you be my family too? Oh, Marlo. Because I love you, and Daddy loves you, so you should be my family. Marlo wrapped her arms around Leora's neck. Can you be mine? Yes, Liora whispered. I can be yours. Good. That's settled then. It was October when Davin made the decision. He called the Silver Lantern and made a reservation. Table 7, where everything started. On the night of their reservation, Davin dropped Marlo at Sarah's. You're going to ask her tonight, right, Daddy? That's the plan, sweetheart. She's going to say yes, because she loves us. Liora arrived wearing the same emerald green dress from Christmas Eve. Davin was waiting at table 7. You remembered, he said. How could I forget? This is where it all began. After dinner, Davin took her hand. Liora, this is where you were sitting alone, where my daughter walked up and asked if you were okay, where everything changed. Tears built in Leora's eyes. I love you, he said. Marlo loves you. I don't want to imagine my life without you. He stood, pulling her to her feet. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight. I want Marlo to be part of that when it comes. But I am asking you, will you be part of our family? Yes, Liora said. Yes, Davin. To all of it. He pulled her into his arms, and Liora felt the last shadow of that terrible Christmas Eve finally dissolve. Davin called Marlo immediately. The squeal that followed was deafening. I knew she would say yes. This is the best day ever. Can we have pancakes tomorrow? With chocolate chips? Yes to all of the above. Daddy, can I talk to Liora? Liora took the phone. Hi, Marlo. I'm really glad we all found each other. I love you so much. I love you too, Marlo. After they hung up, Davin and Liora stood in the parking lot under October stars. Thank you, Davin said, for taking a chance on us. She's not chaotic. She's perfect. You both are. We're a package deal. I wouldn't want it any other way. Davin kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. The next morning, Liora arrived carrying strawberries and whipped cream. Marlo threw herself at Liora. You came. I knew you would. In the kitchen, Sarah was setting the table. Welcome to the family, Sarah said simply. They made pancakes together. Batter everywhere, chocolate chips scattered across the floor. But no one cared. Marlo raised her orange juice. I want to make a toast to family and to Liora, who is the best family ever, and to me for walking over to her table that night. To family, they echoed. And as Liora looked around, at Davin with his kind eyes, at Marlo with her fearless heart, at Sarah with her quiet approval, she realized something profound. Sometimes the worst moments are actually doorways. Sometimes we have to sit alone at a restaurant table, heartbroken, before we can be found by the people who will change everything. Sometimes it takes a 6-year-old to see what adults miss. That lonely people shouldn't be lonely alone. That kindness costs nothing but means everything. That family isn't always about blood, but about who shows up. Liora had shown up expecting nothing and found everything. Sometimes the best stories start with rejection. Sometimes they start with tears. And sometimes they start with a little girl walking across a restaurant and asking the bravest question in the world. Can we join you? And sometimes, just sometimes, the answer changes everything.